it's a great market. We have a lot of new construction out here. We have I think the same goes for property taxes, increased insurance all around. But what we're seeing is just a little bit more stabilization, I would say, in those variable expenses that come with home ownership.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Austin Home Guy podcast, the only podcast that talks real estate. And I say that because it's not actually true. There's way better people talking about real estate than me. So, but today's guest is a good friend of mine and real estate agent in Houston, Texas, Jasmine Philpott. So say hello, Jasmine.
Hello.
So Jasmine and we met here in Austin. I think did we met at doing CrossFit? Was that the first time we met?
Orange Theory.
Orange Theory? Yeah, I feel like we ended up running into each other at a bunch of different gyms. We were kind of always in the same gym circle. And then you got married I think we both were engaged and getting married at the same time. You moved to Houston and texted me after you got your license. I'll let you talk about that. Talk about what would the process was like and what got you into real estate at the start.
Yeah. So when COVID hit, I just had a baby and with the gyms being closed down, stayed at home, tried the stay at home mom thing, which is great. But it wasn't for me. At the time, my husband had also got us into investing into rental properties in the Houston market. This is where my husband is from and where all my in-laws are. So he's very familiar with the Houston market, wanted to invest here. And so that's what we did. After a couple rental properties we purchased, he was like, "Hey, get your real estate license. Let's find the deals and let's save on some commission." So,
Nice.
so
So
yes.
where's your family from?
So my family, I just say, is from the West Coast. We're all along Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona, Nevada. So
Nice. So awesome. So you got your license. So you've been in it. So what, 4 years now? 3 or 4 years?
yeah, so I got licensed in April of 2022.
That's awesome. And you've done something this over the last few years that is relatively rare. Like selling over 10 million in your first 2 or 3 years, if you're not in a luxury market like New York or California, is incredible. New York or California, you can do it in one or two transactions. So but when you're in a place like Texas, Oklahoma, different places, especially Houston, because the price points in Houston are actually a lot lower than Austin for the most part. I mean, there's pockets of Houston, obviously, that are very expensive and very nice, but as a whole, it's a little bit, you can find more affordable housing comparatively. So you've done really amazing for your first few years. So I commend that. Congratulations. What would
Thank you.
you, what would you attribute, what was the kind of catalyst for you going from uh, I have no idea what I'm doing to, oh, like, I got this. Like, this is starting to roll.
Yeah, so when I first started, I joined a brokerage and stayed an independent agent. I was also 5 months pregnant at the time that I got my license. I knew shortly after I got licensed, went through training, that I needed a team that was going to keep me structured on my systems and keep me motivated to get in front of leads and continue to lead generate once the baby came. My brokerage at the time did not have a team to offer me those things. And so I stuck around for about a year. I was able to get a couple personal sphere deals closed and a lot of rentals. And what I took from that first year was stay in touch with those folks who are renting, who become long term clients and the best people to refer you to friends and family. Second year in real estate, I decided to join a team. I'm now a part of one of the biggest teams here in the greater Houston area. And so that really changed the game for me. It not only do were they giving me leads, or giving me opportunities to convert leads into clients, but they had a lot of systems that I was not familiar with that really helped me get back organized and structure, just my business to work for me.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy how in real estate you just it's hard to explain to people, but you don't know what you don't know. And so I jumped into real estate and kind of cut the net from my previous career and was like I can do anything. Like I can jump into this, not realizing like actually how complicated the industry is. And most people I don't think at the front end understand it. It's kind of that dichotomy of like it can be insanely complex, and then there's at times it's relatively simple, but when you run into a deal that has a bunch of moving parts, like, it can feel overwhelming at times, and I think a lot of people don't understand that, and so if you don't have, like, the right support system and people around you to be like, "Hey, you got this," or, feed from that knowledge, yeah, you I wanna say it probably took me until about year 3 to really start to feel like, "Oh, okay, I can I really understand what's going on, you know? And I'm assuming that you've arrived there. I mean, if you sold what, close to 13 million last year?
Yeah, I closed 11.8 million last year.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's a fantastic year for 3 years in the business. That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
well, let's so this specific podcast, we wanted to jump in and talk about I texted you. I was like, "Hey, what do we want to kind of discuss on this?" And I loved your response because these tend to be the most complicated transactions are the I have a seller and they want to buy at the same time. So, what has been that experience been like for you thus far?
Well, our team works with a lot of builders, well known builders here out in the Houston market. And so, what we tend to see more so is the reverse of that, right? You have a buyer that needs to sell in order to buy this new home. But it's all the same
Ah,
thing.
yeah.
Uh, so, uh, yeah, just having to be, ready to go, figuring out what is needed. Does this buyer need to sell? They have to sell in order to qualify for this new home. Or are they just wanting to sell to have, additional funds for their down payment. They don't want double mortgages. They don't want to rent their property. So first, just figuring out what is needed. In the beginning. And also on the reverse, like you said, sellers who also want to buy, maybe it's due to relocation, maybe it's upsizing. Um, Whatever the reason may be, and helping them navigate, well, what's the timeline that I can expect to be on the market or when my property should sell, to when I should start looking at new homes to purchase. Lining up the timeline, I would say, is the most important. And my experience
Yeah.
with that, you know, I think every single deal is going to look different, and so every single timeline looks different, and being able to identify that with your clients and have everybody on board and on track, that definitely can be a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because like with new construction, historically I've been able to time it a little bit. I mean, you have a longer runway with new construction, right? If you're buying new construction, selling your house, you typically, especially if you're ground up, right? You're going in, purchasing a lot, you relatively like well, that changed a lot during COVID because builders were out of materials and things were getting delayed like crazy. So there was a lot of people that we ended up selling their house and they had nowhere to go for a while. So we had to like find short-term rentals. That was a pain in the butt because there was a shortage of rentals. So we're trying to find leases for people that can get in, 3 to 6 months while their build is being finished because we already sold their house. and it was a giant pain. And in some cases, I even had, my, more well off buyers were able to, they would sometimes had to put a lease for a year. And honestly, I don't blame them because they're like, yeah, we have no idea if the builder's actually going to hit the next timeline anyway. So like they missed it by the last one by 6 months. So we're going to sign a year lease and wait. But I had a couple of clients that their builds took, over, a year longer than expected during the peak of all of that, which was crazy. But I think some of the craziest stuff. Have you done a had a seller that was trying to buy at the same time yet?
Yeah, so just recently in December, I was helping a family relocate. I guess this is not a transaction where I was the selling agent and the seller's agent, or buyer's agent and seller's agent,
Yeah,
but still coordinating with the other agent in a different state with different rules and laws and contracts. Uh, did It was very challenging. We it caused delay and kind of pushed back on our closing here, not because they delayed in the other state, but just because of all the moving parts involved in both transactions.
yeah.
So uh,
Do you feel like
another,
I was gonna say,
I
do
was
you
going to
feel
mention.
like when I wanted to ask you one question, a follow-up question on that a little bit. Do you feel like your clients fully understand the length and the stress that you go through to make these things happen while you're in that process?
I would say some of them. Some of them, I am very transparent with my clients. I like to develop long-term relationships with clients, so I always make it very personable when working with clients. However, I also don't like to add anxiety or stress to their plate, and so some of the things are conversations or tasks that need to be handled I do not share with them just to prevent any added stress to what they're already dealing with, having to move, especially a family of five, right, and across state lines. Um, However, I think, the clients who feel that the job was done and they didn't feel the stress and anxiety of the transaction, they do appreciate, whatever it took. And even post closing, sometimes I'll share like, "Oh, I didn't tell you, but this happened," and we'll laugh about it and say, "Oh, thankfully, we got through it." But I think those clients do appreciate. Sometimes early on, I think when you have clients that are already under a lot of stress and pressure, it doesn't matter what you keep from them or share with them. It's just going to be stressful from start to finish, no matter what you
Yeah.
do. And so, I think I've dealt with both kinds of clients.
Yeah, that's so I've had a couple probably Uh, one of the most stressful deals I've ever been through was when the market was going haywire. I had a set of clients they needed to buy. They were moving to a different. They were moving from South Austin to North Austin. So they had bought their South Austin home with me, and they were moving to Pflugerville, and they had a relatively specific set of needs. They needed a house that at least had a full bedroom and a full bathroom down because they took care of their grandmother, and then they wanted the rest of the rooms in the house to be in a different part of the house, so either upstairs or on the other side of the house, and not necessarily the primary. They didn't want to give up the primary bedroom if they could, so they wanted a secondary room with a full bathroom in a different location in the house, and it had to be on the ground floor, and so the primary bedroom could be up. So the market's going bananas, right? Everything's getting sold in like a day, if that, in multiple offers. And every time a house that would come on the market, they're both working. We're driving to see it the day it comes on the market. And oftentimes the listing agent is so overwhelmed with offers, I can't get a hold of them. They're not calling me back. When I finally get a hold of them, they're like, we have like 40 offers and we're closing it down. Like we're done. And I'm like, I don't know how we're going to do this. Like it started to get like super stressful. So This house comes on the market, and we're probably a couple months into this process now. We've written probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 different offers at this point, to try and get something, and like, not, we're not even close. So this house comes on the market in Pflugerville. I look at it, I immediately write the offer. So it's been on the market for 2 minutes. I literally open up my Zip forms, write the offer, and for 150,000 over list price. And we are I'm looking at all of this, and I'm calculating all of this, right? Because I'd seen what all these other houses were starting to sell for, because some, now the market's escalated and we're starting to see what some of these closing prices are, and it was bananas. So I send the offer to my clients for signatures. This is in under 10 minutes of the house being on the market. I send it to signatures. I send them the link for the listing with the contract and the signatures. And they look at the listing, they're like, yeah, that'll work. They sign the contract. I send the contract to the listing agent. So it's a full price offer with the appraisal waiver waived, like, so we're not contingency on appraisal. And I send it to the listing agent 15 minutes after being on the market, and she calls me immediately. She's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's an offer for 150,000 over your list price, and we're on our way to see it right now. So I will text you a thumbs up if the offer stands." And the it was an older lady, and she was really sweet, and she was like, "Okay." So like we go see it, tour it, and at this point, there's like a line outside of the front of the house too, and we everything goes well. The listing agent's like, I text her thumbs up. She's like, "Hey, just so you know, the seller wants to hold it through the weekend." And I was like, "No," because that's basically the telltale sign of like, "Hey, you're not going to get this house." So she holds it through the weekend. And I've been in touch with her. My clients actually went back to the open house and met her while they were there, which was also great, because the listing agent loved my clients. And then uh, she calls me that Sunday evening, and she's like, "Hey, so my sellers are going to work with your offer. We're going to counter 1 or 2 points." I think we ended up paying title policy as well. And she's like, "But I just want you to know, they got 68 offers over the weekend. And of those 68, we were actually ranked number 4. But the only reason she was going to accept our offer is because we had gotten it in so quickly, and she knew how desperately I communicated how desperately we needed this house for them and their grandparents." Well, what that listing agent didn't know was, and we weren't fully contingent. My clients did have a little bit of money, but if I'm being honest, the only way we could cover the appraisal waiver was if we sold their house. So during this process, we actually had their house prepped to list. And as soon as we got an offer accepted, we were listing their house. Unbeknownst to the listing agent, I kept them out of that process. But I'm not joking you. This was the most stress I've ever been under in a real estate transaction, because we listed their house, same kind of set of dynamics, but thankfully our best offer was a 1031 exchange for their house. And the 1031 exchange could actually close in 3 weeks. And once you get through an option period on a 1031 exchange, it's pretty much a done deal, because it's being transferring one investment to another, right? So we got so lucky, because we ended up closing on their house like 4 or 5 days before closing on the new house, and the entire thing worked out. But I mean, we get into there's some situations that you're like, if all of the chips don't fall here,
Right.
I'm gonna get I'm gonna get myself in trouble. So
Yeah.
don't tell my broker I did that. Actually, that was at a different broker, so they won't care anyway. What's the
Oh, man.
what's the kind of, have you had any kind of crazy buy sell stories since, I know you've only been in it for 3 years, but have you had any situations that you're like, man, this one was a little nuts?
Yeah, I am currently going through that. Well, let me start with the good story. So I had a client who was went under contract for new construction. Of course, needed to sell the home to have additional down payment. Now, they did qualify to purchase the home without the additional down payment, but it's where they were comfortable. The additional down payment would make their monthly for them to move forward. And so we went ahead and closed the new construction. And they really, well, sorry, rewind. We listed their house first and really only had maybe 90 days to try to sell this home to get the proceeds before the new construction closed. And maybe about, I would say 3 weeks before the new construction closed, we had an investor come in, make an offer, went through option period, no problems, and closed it just in time for for them to close on their new property. And then also that investor had me lease the property out, find a tenant. That took maybe 10 days to find them a tenant. So it all worked
Man,
out for both sides.
I was gonna say sometimes, sometimes when you get those ones, you're like, man, this is why I do this job. You're like,
Yeah,
you get those, you get a few that are validating, and you're like, yeah, this is like, and I think there's also something in real estate that's kind of special in that oftentimes I feel like there's a something bigger at play. Like I feel like people kind of land where they're meant to land. And, in real estate, if you're trying to fit, like a square peg into a round hole, that's the telltale sign to just like stop. Every time I've like, and even with clients, like when my clients are anxious and push, and sometimes they do. I've had it happen recently where a client just last year really was pushing to get this transaction through. And at every turn, I was like, pump the brakes, like, think about this. And they got so eager. And fast forward to a month ago, they took a job out of state and now they're trying to lease it out and lease it out for a loss too, and so sometimes I feel like if you're just patient and you kind of listen, like everything in real estate kind of starts to come together when the timing's right, like families kind of land where they're meant to land, deals work out. Even just yesterday or a couple of days ago, we got an offer accepted on a house in South Austin for some clients that had been looking at a few. We put in an offer on a couple of properties and we ended up not getting them. Some of them, the value wasn't there. Another one, they ended up getting another offer, but this house had been on the market for almost a month and we put in an offer, and literally 10 minutes after we execute, the listing agent texts me and they got an offer that was 50,000 better than ours. 10 minutes after we're fully executed. So like, there's sometimes I run into these situations. I'm like, yeah, the timing was just right and we landed it and you're kind of meant to be in this house. And that feels good. It makes me
yeah,
feel like my job has some purpose, outside of just, transacting real estate. So
yeah,
the,
yeah.
uh, but I wanted to come back, circle back to the what you were going to say before, because you said you had potentially another one that was maybe not so great.
Well, there's multiple moving parts involved into this
Always,
one.
always.
And so, there are so our team, we do have some programs that we can offer uh buyers who are going into new construction, and we partner with these builders to be able to say if their house doesn't sell by the time that they need to move into the new home or close on the new home, that our team will purchase that home from them so that they can move into the new home. Um, Not everybody qualifies for that program. Not every home, I should say, qualifies for that program. And so sometimes you just, one, look at your other resources, or two, you take that chance and you just list it and, you market it as best as you can and see where the cards fall. So this client is the latter. And We did find a resource that was able to, they call it like a temporary bridge loan. They're
Yeah.
able to offer this option without any interest or additional fees for up to 90 days. After that 90 days, oh, the fees tack on. And
Yeah.
so, then you're stuck between, um, trying to decide, are we going to improve the price to try to get a buyer as quickly as possible, potentially having to owe at the closing table because of all the fees? Are we going to keep the price where it's at to, again, try to get a buyer so that we can at least walk away, without having to owe or something on the upside? So they purchased their new construction. They've already moved into their new home and their house needing to sell is part of one of these programs and the fees have tacked on and it's just been, kind of stressful because going back and forth with the program director, manager, I should say, um, and trying to ensure, hey, we do have some offers in hand, but is there any way some of these fees can,
Yeah.
we can work with this family to lighten the what they're going to owe at the closing table? That back and forth has been stressful that I haven't relayed to the clients. I'm just sharing the good news, right?
Yeah.
um, so right now we're going through that, but just keep your fingers crossed that it all works out and sometimes it doesn't, but as you know, I try to make sure that I'm giving my client all the information they need to be able to ultimately make the decision that's best for them.
Yeah, absolutely. This year's been hard. These last couple years have been hard like that. Anybody that purchased in, 21, 22, or 23, you're likely underwater on your house right now. And, if you didn't have a large down payment and your life changed drastically, like that was really the story of our last year. The story of our last year was meeting after meeting. Like we had more opportunities to sell properties last year than probably ever before, and we sold less than I have in, 9 years because it just didn't make sense. And when you're advocating for clients, sometimes the best thing is not to sell the house. Sometimes the right advice is like, "Hey, this doesn't work. Like you're not going to this is." And in a few situations it's like, "Hey, you might need to explore short sales. You might need to explore foreclosure depending on what your situation is, and hopefully not foreclosure, but there are situations and we're seeing it more and more now, and it's heartbreaking because, like, uh, you look back at those years and you're like, oh, in hindsight for us, especially Austin, I think Houston might have been slightly different. It probably a little bit less erratic. Austin shot up so high so fast because of the tech boom. And it wasn't just, it wasn't just COVID. It was COVID plus then Elon Musk announces Tesla's moving to Austin. Then Oracle announces it's moving its headquarters here. And when you have companies like that, two of the biggest, wealthiest companies in the world moving their headquarters to Austin, Texas, you have all these other companies that are following because they do business with them. So they have to have imprints here as well. So there was this mad rush for housing during that period of time, and it just shot things through the roof. And then since it's cooled down, but it was like this perfect storm of just insane buyer demand and home prices escalating. And then, you know, Texas, our property taxes are the thing that uh, we make. That's how we don't have a sales tax. So we operate the state off of our property taxes. And when prices escalate that much, so do property taxes, and then insurance has gone up, and basically every other thing else in the world's gotten expensive, and people are just like, man, I don't know what to do. So it's been a little bit of a heartbreaking year, but we're starting to finally see that, okay, 6% isn't as crazy, you know, as it was before. I mean, it still feels expensive for a lot of people, but it's becoming more normal because it's been like that for a few years. So, uh, and and people have kind of had to make decisions now. Like people that wanted to move or change or do something have kind of decided, oh, we've got to stay. So things are changing a little bit. But have you? What's I would like, let's kind of wrap this in this realm. How do you see 2026 playing out for you? Uh, how do you see this year? Like, what's the dynamic in your market right now? Do you think it's going to shift one way or the other? Like, how do you foresee 2026 playing out?
Well, I'm always positive, of course. And since I've started, so I don't know if I've ever talked to you about our experience selling in Austin before we moved here was right at the tail end of that um, heightened market. And so we came out on the upside, leaving Austin, coming to Houston. Since I've been licensed in real estate and working with buyers and sellers, for the last 3.5 years, almost 4 years, I have seen a more consistent market. Now, do some areas tend to shift more so than others? Yes. But I always, when I talk about the Houston market, I always try to get as narrow as possible, depending on who I'm talking to. So, with your question of what do I see for 2026? I mean, it's a great market. We have a lot of new construction out here. We have I think the same goes for property taxes, increased insurance all around. But what we're seeing is just a little bit more stabilization, I would say, in those variable expenses that come with home ownership. And so for me, I think it's important, and for all agents who are practicing in 2026, is just to familiarize ourselves with, what the current rates are at the time, and to ensure we're sharing that with clients to be able to make the best decision. I think there's always going to be buyers and sellers. We even considered at one point moving back to Austin and just looking at the difference in markets. I one, would have to, start all over with building my real estate business back up. But two, it didn't make sense for us because what we have here, it was substantially more expensive there. And then also tied into it, we had to weigh the pros and cons to private school versus public schools, also in that area, in those areas that we were looking. And then commute time to, where my husband would be um, officing. And all of that, it just didn't line up. And so, one, I'm happy we're staying in the Houston market because I think business is good here.
Yeah.
But two,
Good. I don't
the
want to be
the
competing with you, Jasmine.
hey, we
One less,
partnered.
one less,
We would collaborate.
one less person I have to compete with out here. All right.
Yeah, so I think it'll be great. Again, staying positive as long as you continue to build relationships. I think real estate can be a great industry for people to be a part of. Um, and as long as you can manage the stress without pouring onto your clients, I think that, people can do well in 2026. So I'll leave
I
it with
agree.
that.
That's fantastic. Well, the I hope you have an even better year than last year, which I'm a little jealous because my year this year was down, but it's already starting to pick back up for me a little bit. I think Austin's stabilized, but I hope the best for you and your family in 2026. And yeah, looking forward to seeing how things grow for you. So thank you for coming on and chatting with me. I love this. I love hearing other agents' stories and how they're handling their markets. So I appreciate you being willing to jump on and share. So
Awesome. Well,
good luck.
thanks for the invite, Derek. And it was great. Great to be a part of.
Yeah. Signing off.